a second turnbuckle pile driver that didn't end the match. That match was...
Don't bring out the Jim Cornette in me. Don't do it.
Don't bring out the Randy Orton dive.
Oh, no, I want the Jim Cornette out of you.
No, listen, okay, shit like that to me is dumb. Okay, like, I don't care if you want to do moves and shit, but, like, come on, don't fucking make it to the point where it's fucking ridiculous. And then, if you do that, okay, if a guy fucking pile drives you off the second rope and you kick out because you're fucking sweet, right? Mm-hmm. That means one or two things. Either that guy's got the worst fucking pile driver of all time, or you're the strongest dude on the show. So I have an issue with it like that. It's not that you can't do shit. I'm not fucking Jim Cornette who's going to sit here and tell you, oh, you can't do spots. You can do spots. You can do shit. But keep it within a realm with some realistic fucking possibility where it's not just like, oh, guys are just doing moves to do moves. And I talked about this before. It's a fucking cheap way to get a pop. It's a fucking cheap-ass way to get a pop. If you're doing that, you don't know how to fucking work. It's a cheap-ass fucking way to get a pop. Because you know anybody kicking out of a second rope fucking pile driver, the crowd's going to go, what? Of course they're going to go, what? Because everyone's like, how the fuck did he kick out of that? It's a pile driver up the second rope. So, to me, if you're doing that, I don't know if you're recording me or not, but I'm looking at you like
we're on Periscope, yeah.
So, to me, you're a fucking mark, and you should buy a fucking ticket, and you have no business wrestling. I don't give a fuck. That to me is too much. That to me is like, you're a fucking dickhead. Like, for real.
But you do understand places like Ring of Honor and New Japan, they tend to make those spots like they're big events just for that type of factor.
Okay, but this is a tournament, right? G1?
Yes.
So he's gonna keep on wrestling now, this guy? Not an injury angle, not like he managed to kick out and like rolled the guy up 1, 2, 3. Like, no, he kept on wrestling. He's fine. You don't think that's dumb?
Now that you put it like that.
It's not that I don't want to see a second row pile driver. Who doesn't want to see that? That sounds sweet as fuck. But you can't tell me that doesn't sound dumb. Just ultimately, this is what we're doing. This is what wrestling is doing, and we're headed this direction. I'm guilty of it. A lot of guys are guilty of it. We are catering to a niche audience. Mm-hmm. We are catering to the smart marks who've already seen all of wrestling. They've seen fucking the Bretts and Flairs and guys work this slower style. And now we're catering to these people. We are giving them what they want to see. So guys like Smitty goes to the show and then goes, this is fucking sweet, no offense. They go, this is sweet. He just fucking kicked out of a fucking pile driver off the second. I can't believe this. I've never seen this before. And the reason why I've never seen it before is because guys used to have to fucking make sense. We used to have to go, okay, you can't do that because that fucking makes everybody look dumb. Now you're telling everybody this is bullshit. When you do that, you're telling everybody right away this is bullshit. And I'm okay with false finishes, but that shit, that's too much.
You say you're too strong, like dudes are too strong a move and don't finish. It's not having a strong move.
No.
Say a second row pile driver, you say something that's way too strong, you should be kicking out.
Listen, if it's a lariat, fucking kick out 3 times. I don't give a fuck.
Oh, you like the Rainmaker.
It's fine, it's fucking lariat, but when you're talking like pile drivers and stuff like, listen, pile drivers used to be just the middle of the match move too, so I'm okay with that. You know, Brett used to do that, bam. And that's fine, but they would still sell it even when they hit it. Like, this is a big fucking deal that they hit a pile driver. And now you're telling me to do it off the second, it's no big fucking deal.
Orlando's right about one thing that I have seen just about any and everything there is seen wrestling at this point. Things like that, they still do. It's like, it's the stuff that I don't see that still shocks me. A second row pile, like, second row pile driver. Yeah, I think anywhere else, if it was WWE, if it was TNA, I think it was places like even if it was lots of indie shows, I don't think anybody would have kicked out.
I got a question for you. When was the last time you guys seen a great fucking match without a false finish?
Oh wow.
Okay, that's what I thought. It's not a knock against you at all.
But I think false finishes are one of the things that keep wrestling matches exciting.
No, it's a cheap pop. Especially today. When I started, and this is 10 fucking years ago, if we went out, and I was athletic, especially then, I was young, like,
oh, sweet.
Right, I was super athletic, but I didn't know how to work. But if I would have just told, I go out and do a bunch of moves and keep kicking out, I would have been fucking over as fuck. But you know why I didn't? Because guys would have ran in and beat me up. Honestly. The veterans in the locker rooms would have ran in and put the boots to you and like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And would have stopped you from that happening. Now today, part of the problem is there's no policing going on in the locker room. So the guys are just being able to do whatever the fuck they want, and no one's telling them that they're right and wrong. And then in a lot of situations, they're getting rewarded for it. They're the guys that are fucking getting booked here and booked there. And it's like, really though, if this was 10 fucking years ago and we had that old grizzly veterans in the locker room, they would have prevented this shit from happening.
But let's go back to how we talked about how this world is just being really sensitive and pussified in general. If your locker room veterans aren't willing to take that.
Well, the problem is a lot of the veterans are doing. That's what the veterans are doing. But
so what's wrong with the young guys trying to emulate the veterans at this point?
There's nothing. But that's the problem. Is that it's not one guy. It's not like, you can be like, this guy or that guy, or It's not a one. It's a fucking universal thing. I go to shows all the time, and all show I see the same fucking match. Guys go out, hit fucking 5 false finishes, and they kick out every fucking time. And the crowd pops for about, even if they don't pop for the first or second one, by the third or fourth fucking one, because enough times you get dropped it in your head and you keep kicking out, the crowd goes, wow, he keeps kicking out. This is cool. It's a fucking cheap pop. It's no different than hardcore wrestling was in the fucking early 2000s. After it had already been played out, and everyone's just fucking hitting each other with fucking gimmicks. You don't even fucking hear it anymore. It's just you're watching the shit and you're like, this is cool. He's hitting him with a fucking tray right now. Oh, they're fucking wrestling in the water. You know, it becomes a cheap pop. It's a fucking cheap pop. It really is. So when I see that, I'm begging guys from now on to have good matches without a false finish. That's my new fucking quest in life right now. Forget raising my kid. my goal in life right now is to go out there and tell the young guys and make them have good matches. Learn to have great fucking matches without a false finish. Because that's a cheap pop. You're having a cheap pop. Just so you know, you guys could lay there and roll up a shoulder. You know what I mean? No experience at all. If I gave you some fucking move, you just laid there, and then you rolled up your fucking shoulder a bunch, I bet you the crowd eventually gets behind you. And you're not trained, so how much skill is that in that?
I also think their false finishes, they actually help get them toward the back and forth.
Well, the problem is, okay, again, if one match on the show was doing it, it'd be fine. Problem is every match on the show is doing it.
Didn't it start, if I'm not mistaken, like, weren't Austin and
Yes.
Rock the first one, like WrestleMania 17 or something
they're
like
the ones who really started fucking kicking out of the finishes. Austin and Rock also started another thing with the bump and feed and the comeback, which it was happening before, but now it's like the go-to guy bumps, gets up bumps. That's a fucking Rock Austin thing that can be attributed to them as well. But again, for them, it made sense. They were at Mania, the biggest stage. These are the two top guys in the fucking world, and nobody else was doing that. If we had seen that same match earlier in the night with I'm thinking WrestleMania 17, right? Rock and Austin. If we had seen Triple H and fucking Undertaker go out and do fucking 5 pedigrees. Undertaker kicks out every fucking time. You wouldn't have cared as much by the time we got to 3 rock bottoms or whatever. You wouldn't have gave as much shit. But see, the problem is, that's the thing. It's not the one main event that you're supposed to be saving that shit for, because that's the etiquette. Is you're supposed to save that type of stuff for the bigger matches. It's not that you can't ever do false finishes. It's that not every match fucking needs one. And when you're doing that in every match, you're literally just doing a cheap pop and you're fucking ruining the rest of the card. Go ahead. I want to hear your opinion.
I just said it needs excitement for everybody. Everybody wants excitement in every match.
Okay, when you go to Ring of Honor and you watch these shows, even when there's good matches going, isn't there some points where you're fucking bored as shit? Where it's like, oh, this is a little long?
No, because they usually
really? Because I've been to these shows and I've thought, and I've been on these shows, and it sucks because when I'm going out there and I got to do a match and a guy goes before me and they're just some random fucking match and they go out and they do fucking 5 false finishes, I'm going to be a little upset. Because now the crowd, they only have so much energy. The crowd comes and goes. The way the show gets written isn't a way that it comes and goes. We all know those fucking bathroom matches. They're on the show for a fucking reason. It's your downtime to get you hyped back up for this fucking time. So the problem is, when one of these down fucking matches goes out and does all that shit, then the crowd's all hyped up. Well, guess what? They start to go down a little bit for your match, and otherwise they'd be fucking here. So I'm mad about that stuff. And people don't realize there's an etiquette to where you're at on the show. There's an etiquette. If you're an opener, you give them a fucking opener. Okay? It's not to say you can't tear it up. Find a different way to tear it up. If you have to rely on false finishes, it's no different than you being a hardcore wrestler in the fucking 2000s hitting each other with a fucking stop sign. You're doing the exact same shit. It's a cheap fucking pop.